Hello everyone, welcome to my new lecture. Today I'm going to give lecture on the factors that may shift the supply curve. Here we'll discuss different factors which may cause shift in the supply curve right or left. We know that price is the main factor that influence the supply or quantity supplied, and due to the change in price there will be movement along the same supply curve, up or down. Okay, there will be contraction or expansion of supply due to the change in price. But there are some other factors apart from price which may shift the supply curve right or left. And these factors directly influence the quantity supplied. Eventually, supply curve will shift to right or left. So now let me state at first the factors that may shift the supply curve apart from the price. The main important factors are production cost, new technology, indirect taxes, subsidies, natural factors. So in this chapter, I'm going to explain these factors and I will show you how these factors affect the quantity supplied and eventually causes right or left or shift in the supply curve. Now, so let me start with the presentation of today's topic. All right, so this is the factors I stated here, factors that affect the supply curve to right or left. So at first, the topic name factors that may shift in the supply curve. So price is the main important factor that affects supply. Okay. However, there is a range of other factors may also have an impact on supply. Unlike a change in price that results in a movement along the supply curve, changes in these other factors can also cause the supply curve to shift. It will shift right or left. It depends on the change of these factors. So these factors are production cost, new technology, indirect taxes, subsidies, and natural factors. All right, now let me explain these factors one by one. At first, the cost of production. All right, so production is influenced by the cost of production. Cost of production include wages, raw materials, energy, rent, machinery. Here you can add some other factors also, say interest rate, then indirect taxes or other benefit given by the funds to the workers. So these all are the factors which will influence the cost of production. If these factors increases, like for example, if wages of the workers increases, price of raw materials increases, and price of energy increases, rent increases, price of machinery increases, interest rate increases, then these factors will increase the total cost of production. So average cost of production per unit will increase. As a result, firms, since here cost is rising and we are assuming that price is fixed, that this fixed price increased cost will lead to reduction in the profitability of the firm, so they'll produce less. Eventually supply will fall and supply curve will shift to the left. All right, and vice versa. Okay, assuming the price is fixed, if production costs rise, producers are likely to reduce production. This is because the profits will be reduced. As a result, supply curve will shift to the left and vice versa. Vice versa means here, if wages falls, the price of raw materials, energy, machineries, all these prices fall, then rent also fall, interest rate falls, then the cost of production of the farm will fall. So average cost of production will also fall. It will increase the profitability of farms per unit. So farm will produce more since their profit maximizer, so they will produce more. As a result, supply will increase and supply curve will shift to the right. All right, now now let me explain this diagram. Okay, here in this diagram, I just showed how the cost of production will affect the quantity supplied and will cause the shift in the supply curve right or left. Here in this diagram, our initial supply curve is this red color supply curve SS, which is labeled by SS. All right. In this diagram, we assume that price of the product is fixed and which is $3,000 per unit, and total supply of the product is 5 million. All right. So here in this situation, if cost of production of the farms falls due to the fall in the wages or due to fall in rent, interest rate, or other issues which are related to the cost of production fall, then cost of production will also fall. Total cost of production fall, average cost of production will also fall. So farms will be encouraged to produce more. So supply curve will shift to the right. Here at the same price, 3,000 US dollar, farm will produce more, 1 million extra. That means before it was 5 million, now they are producing 6 million. So supply curve is shifting to the right from SS to SS1. That means this red color supply curve to this blue color supply curve. So this is called the outward shift of the supply curve, and it happened due to the fall in cost of production. All right. Now think other way. If price is same, still the price of the product is 3,000 US dollar per unit. Now, if cost of production rises due to increase in wages of the workers, due to increase in the interest rate, rent, prices of raw materials, machineries, etc. increases, then farm's total cost will fall. So here, since price of the product is same and cost is rising, so profitability per unit of the farms will fall. So they will produce less as they are rational producer. So their production will fall from 5 million unit to 4 million units. So supply curve will shift to the left from SS to SS2, which is called inward shift or leftward shift of the supply curve. So inward shift or leftward shift of supply curve will occur if there is increase in cost of production, and if there is a decrease in cost of production, there will be outward or rightward shift in the supply curve. So this is how cost of production influences or causes the shift of supply curve to right or left. So now let me turn to the next factor, indirect taxes. What are indirect taxes? Okay, indirect taxes are basically taxes that can be passed on to another entity or individual. They are usually imposed on a manufacturer or a supplier by the government, who then passes on the tax to the consumer. That means here, government will impose tax on the farms, okay, but these farms will pass on this tax burden to the consumer by adding this add with the final product. So indirect tax will increase the price of the product. That means here, while purchasing the product, farms, consumers will pay price for the product. In addition, they will pay indirect tax to the government. So they are giving now both price of the product and tax also. So they are paying more. That means they are paying extra price. So here price, market price plus VAT altogether is the price of the product. So consumers are paying more, so they will buy less. Demand will fall. As a result, farms will also reduce their production. Since demand is falling, so automatically supply will fall. As a result, supply curve will shift to the left. All right. Okay. So I gave some examples here of indirect taxes. So VAT is most popular example of indirect taxes. So VAT means the value added tax. All right. And other duties such as those on petrol and cigarettes are example of indirect taxes. So these are most commonly used form of indirect taxes. VAT and duties mostly used imposed on petrol and cigarettes. So this VAT and duties on petrol and cigarette will increase the price of the product. So demand will fall, supply will fall. As a result, supply curve will shift to the left. All right. Such taxes have an impact on supply. When they're imposed or increased, the supply curve will shift to the left. This is because indirect taxes represent cost to the farms. So they will produce less. Since this is cost to the farms, later on they will pass on it to the consumers, but at first they will have to pay. So this is cost on them. All right. So since cost is rising, they will produce less. Again, supply curve will shift to the left. And inversely, supply curve will shift to the right if there is a reduction in the indirect taxes or removal of indirect taxes. If indirect tax is totally removed, then cost of production will fall, so farms will produce more, supply curve will shift to the right. Or if it reduced even, then also supply will increase and supply curve will shift to the right. So finally, the conclusion is if indirect tax increases, then supply will fall and supply curve will shift to the left. And if indirect tax is reduced, then supply will increase and supply curve will shift to the right. All right, so next factor that affect the supply and supply curve is subsidy. What is subsidy? At first you have to learn this. So a subsidy is an amount of money provided to firms by the government or organization to help reduce production cost, which can then be passed on as lower prices and which can encourage the consumption. That means here, when the government is giving subsidy to the firms, so it will reduce their cost of production. Since cost of production is falling, they will charge lower price. All right, so the consumers will get the benefit. Opposite of taxes, right? Indirect taxes. Taxes will increase the cost of production, so it will be passed on to the consumers, and consumers will have to pay more. All right, but for subsidy will reduce the cost of production, so it will be passed on also to the consumers by offering lower price by the farm. So for consumers will buy more and supply will increase, supply curve will shift to the right. All right, so therefore there are main objectives of the subsidy are to make prices lower, to reduce the cost of production, to encourage production of a certain good or service. Right? So these are the main three objectives of the subsidy while the government decides to give subsidies. So they concentrate on these main three objectives. All right. If the government grants a subsidy on a good, the effect is to increase its supply. This is because subsidies help to reduce production cost. As a result, the supply curve will shift to the right. So finally, we can say that if subsidy is issued or given to firms, then supply will increase, supply curve will shift to the right. And if subsidy is removed or reduced, then production will fall, supply curve will shift to the left. All right, the next fact, okay, let me now show the impact of subsidy on supply graphically. So this is the basic subsidy diagram for producers. All right, so here in this diagram, I was showing the, as usual, price, the vertical axis, and the horizontal axis, we are showing the quantity or output supplied by the firms. So here, this is our initial supply curve, which is labeled as market supply curve pre-subsidy. That means before or in absence of subsidy. And this is the original demand curve. Okay, so this is the equilibrium. We know the equilibrium is the intersection point between supply curve and demand curve. Okay, this is the intersection point. At this point, at any given price, quantity of demand and supply will be same. So here, this price is also known as equilibrium price, market equilibrium price, and this is equilibrium quantity. Okay, so at this price, at this equilibrium price is P1 and quantity supplied and demanded both are same, that is Q1. Now, if the government gives subsidy to the firms, what will happen? Let me show you this. So if subsidy is given, then it will reduce the cost of production. So it will encourage firms to produce more. Since firms are encouraged to produce more, so supply will increase. Then supply curve will shift to the right. Okay, so from this to this supply curve to this supply. That means from market supply curve to market supply curve pre-subsidy to market supply curve post-subsidy. Okay, this supply curve is showing the supply curve after giving the subsidy by the government. So this is the new supply curve. Because of the supply curve, this supply curve shifted to the right, and we are getting here new equilibrium at this intersection point. Now we are considering only the new equilibrium, new supply curve for getting new equilibrium. Okay. At this new equilibrium, price is P2 and quantity supplied is Q2. That means quantity increased from Q1 to Q2 and price decreased from P1 to P2. So the ultimate impact of subsidy is fall in price and rise in quantity supplied. Okay, so if subsidy is given by the government, then output will increase. As a result, price will fall. So this is how the impact of subsidy will be passed on the consumers positively. For indirect taxes, it will be passed on negatively. That means consumers will pay more for indirect taxes, but for subsidy, consumers will pay less. Now, for getting this amount, or say from here to here, Q2 amount, consumers will pay P2 price. Okay, so this is all about the impact of subsidy. Now, let us come to the next factor: changes in technology. All right. technology also has a direct impact on quantity supplied, and it also affects the supply curve directly, because new technology is more efficient and can therefore reduce the cost of production. Since it will help to lower the production cost, firms are likely to offer more for sale. As a result, there will be a shift in the supply curve to the right. On the other hand, if the existing technology becomes less efficient, productivity of the factors of production will follow. You know what are the factors of production? Land, labor, capital, and entrepreneurship. These four are the factors of production. So old technology will reduce the productivity of all these factors of production. Eventually, supply will fall and supply curve will shift to the left. So this is the natural factors, and this is the last factor which affect the supply curve. All right. So the production of some goods is influenced by natural factors such as the weather, natural disasters, diseases, or the presence of pests. For example, rats and mice. This is true for many agricultural products. That means if weather condition is favorable for the farms, then they can produce more. So supply curve will shift to the right. Okay. So good growing conditions can help to improve crop yields, which will increase the supply. As a result, supply curve will shift to right. So that means the favorable conditions. If weather is good, there is no natural disaster, there is no disease, there is no presence of the pests. In that case, overall condition is favorable for the agricultural production. Then production will increase, so supply curve will shift to the right. On the contrary, the cost of production for many agricultural products will be affected by changes in natural conditions. For example, a drought decreases the supply of agricultural products, which means that at any given price, a lower quantity will be supplied. In that case, there would be a leftward shift in the supply curve. So, good condition, either natural condition, favorable natural condition is responsible for the rightward shift of the supply curve, and bad unfavorable natural condition is responsible for the leftward shift in the supply curve due to fall in supply. All right. So this is all about our today's lecture. In this lecture today, what we discussed, at first we stated the factors of production. We stated the factors of production that shift the supply curve right or left. Then we explained these factors in detail, and we showed the graphical presentation of impact of subsidy and the cost in production. So if cost of production falls, then supply will rise. If it increases, the supply will decrease also. Then subsidy also, if subsidy increases, supply increases, subsidy falls, supply falls. This is how we explain. So in this case, in this topic, we just combine theoretical explanation and graphical presentation to make it easier to understand. Okay, so I hope you will get benefit from this lecture. Thank you very much for joining me and for remaining attentive. Thank you very much once again.